Okay, so this is Zoom meeting 122, Chesil Beach. And there it is. So I did say that I'm just zooming in a little bit without losing a lot of sky, because Victoria was in open revolt. So I will still keep my horizon a third up, it's about there. And we may as well put a faint line across. So all that is sky. Just below the horizon left is where Weymouth is, or nearly there. Still see a bit of sea in the distance. And this is Portland, which is almost an island. And it just angles off very slightly towards the horizon to form that headland there. And it comes back, and this line will be just under the horizon. About there, and there's a whiplash curve all the way out to the right. Wonderful. So it's mainly sand and shingle, so it's got quite a pale yellowy look. And it gets narrower as it comes towards us, but that is cancelled out by perspective, so in fact it keeps fairly constant width to our eye. So here is, I don't know if it's a lagoon or just a mere, but it's a body of water. It's got its own headlands jutting into it. Can't go any further. Let's get the foreground in, where we've got a bit of vegetation. There's a stile. Drawn it a bit high up. I'm going to move it back a little bit here. Here's the gate. I think it is a stile, it's not a gate, is it? That's the gate there. And there's might be a kissing gate, I'm not sure. I don't think I can influence what it is, so it's just with a couple of uprights and 3 horizontals. So proportionally bigger than the photograph. Also invaded into the view of the lagoon. So it's just as though, in reality, I've taken a few steps forward toward the gate. So everything else remains the same, the gate is bigger. We've got the path. Here's the foreground, and there's some trees in the distance there. So nothing's changed much. I've just zoomed in. So I think that is slightly better proportions. Okay. Oops. Like a mouse trap. So colours in the sky, I've got French ultramarine, tiny bit of raw sienna. I put a bit of grey in with the ultramarine, and it's got a pinky tinge to it, so a bit of crimson, I think. Better than trying to put scarlet in there, which might look a little bit odd. The crimson will look fine. So I'll be wetting the paper and putting it on both sides in a couple of minutes. So if any latecomers miss the little conversation about the subject being a little bit one-sided, I've zoomed in, brought the gate much further forward and brought it more into the picture, give it a bit of balance. So there's the sea and the Chesil beach balances with the gate and the style more, I think, or better. So I'm wishing my paper was a bit bigger for the sky, but it is what it is. Let's have some colour standing by. The French ultramarine. A little bit of raw sienna. some alizarin crimson. I put some Payne's Grey in with my ultramarine. Next thing I'll do is wet the paper and let that stand for a minute or two. And before I put any paint on, I'll just drag my kitchen roll across once or twice, just to take some of the water out, give us a chance of more cloud formation. That's the theory. Let's see what happens. Right. Wet the paper. Let it stand for a few seconds. So let me know if there's a reflection there that stops you seeing what I'm doing. A little bit more on. Right, so I'm just going to drag my kitchen roll across fairly haphazardly, but not into the distance. I want that to be very much wetting wet. Right, so I'm just drawing this across horizontally in bands. Now I've added some water to my brush, so it's thinning down. Now a little bit of crimson in and among, coming down. So I want this to be a flat wash going into the distance. A bit more blue. So it's just good to vary the colour a little bit. Now you might be wondering what about the raw sienna, but that's up in the clouds later. Right in the distance, I'm actually removing all the paint. We still leave a residue of colour behind, but that's so pale. It's just what I wanted. Now, raw sienna. But be afraid of removing a bit of paint. If there's too much, if there's a big well of paint, that will swamp the raw sienna. So,
can I use instead of raw sienna? I haven't got any.
Yellow ochre should be okay.
Okay,
Or Naples yellow.
fine, great.
You should have raw sienna. That's what the
I
fundamental colour, Victoria.
I know. Yeah.
Now some of these clouds might just have a hint of a shadow underneath them. Now I've got too much water on my paper, so with a damp clean brush, I'm just maximizing these cloud shapes. And because they're in the distance, they're going to be fairly long, not too tall. It's all very subtle. So I've got a fairly extensive blue across the top of my clouds. So I'm shaping the clouds in the top half of the sky, which are quite fulsome because they're nearer. So I'm just creating those with a damp brush. Just a hint of crimson while it's still damp. I'm happy with the bottom half of the sky. There's been one flat colour, just slightly variegated, so I'm concentrating on the top half, just bringing some shaping into the clouds. So I'm glad I put plenty of water on. It's still quite wet, so it's responding to this dry brush nicely. Now if yours is dried prematurely, just wet it again. Just wet where you want to remove. So I've not really any idea if that's what I intended. The sky's always a surprise to me. So I didn't want it too complicated. I think that's turned out okay. Need to remove some paint here. So if you want to create a cloud, just work away gently with your wet brush. Don't go too complicated though. Put some gentle shadows underneath. Sometimes you see a shape in the sky unexpectedly, and you just make more of it. I've got some blooms here, cauliflower, caused by too much water, and they look okay. Sometimes you've got to get rid of them, but I'm quite happy with these. I don't know if that's clearly visible. Zoom in a little bit. So when that's dry, it will have a mind of its own. Let's see how it turns out. I think I'm going to interrupt these cauliflowers if I can. Just take a line out. Okay. It looks a little bit complex, and I'm hoping that when because it's still fairly damp and fluid, I'm hoping that when it dries, it'll settle down a little bit. But it's okay. So whatever you think of your sky, don't forget that when you've done the foreground, your perception of the sky will change completely, so don't worry. Right, now I've got the right sort of colours in my palette for the sea. Here we've got Weymouth Bay, I think it is, in the distance. So that's just a mid-grey. Just turn it down a little bit. And we've got the same right on the right hand side, way in the distance there. May as well carry on with the sea. So this changes from a very pale bluey grey take that right across. And on the other side of the beach, it's a similar colour, bluey grey. It's going to be paler than anything else, so you can just bring that right down. Don't need to follow the line too much. Now it gets very pale down here, so with a clean brush I'm just taking a pigment out. So putting the paint down and taking it off again is quite an acceptable way of reducing the intensity. So the sea carries on, it darkens a little bit. And this is a definite blue. In fact, it's a blue and magenta colour. I've added a bit of crimson. Bring it across. Changes again to a greeny look, slight greeny look. Keep that colour right down to the bottom, and I'll bring some blue lines across later when it's nearly dry. This is a bit fierce, so I'm taking it off a little bit. So horizontal lines. I know it's a curved beach, but the sea doesn't know that. It only knows horizontal lines. Okay, it's not exactly like the photograph, but it's not so bad. Bring a pale line into it with your dry brush. These lines will close up again before it dries. But probably leave enough of a remnant to be visible. Excuse me. And again. A couple of blue lines in here. Let's try that. No, it's still very wet. Very subtle. So I'm making a bit of a meal of this. You've got to stop. Stop. So at this stage, the picture's looking a little bit meh. It's just waiting for the detail of the shoreline to separate. So, okay, it's dry enough for the headland of the Portland, and that's sort of a greeny grey. Look at that. Looks about right. Now, I know the colour varies as we go across. I'm going to do mine all in one colour, except for that little bit of beach there, which is in the sun, so I'll paint around that. Just leave a tiny line of paper showing through next to the sea. And it just gradually fizzles out. Now, before that dries, just lift out a few pale patches really randomly, and that indicates some change in the cliff face all the way along. We try a little bit of Naples yellow. Just here and there. Now this headland coming in from the left, it's quite dark. Dark green, so I've used Hooker's green, but blue and yellow would be fine with Payne's grey added. It comes right in, it almost touches the sandbar. In fact, it may well do that, but want some things there. And there's another headland coming across. So now I've got to decide about the style and the gate. Do I want that to be dark or pale? You can see it pale in the sunlight. So it means I've got to paint around. I quite like doing this. If I decided on a dark wood in this gate. I could have just painted straight across it. Now I know there's a few bits of wood missing. But it's enough. Just tapping some paint into this, darkening it a bit. And just here, there's a bush which is darker still. So when this dries, I'll come back and put that in. So there's a green field right up to the water's edge down here. So it's slightly paler. Mine is squashed down a little bit. This path is actually the same colour, so I may as well use it. Raw sienna, also for the path. Mix it in there. There's a few rocks and stones here. I'll come back, finish that off. Now beyond the gate is very, very dark trees, which I'll put in later. Also down here, all this rough scrub. It's like ghost bushes or something like that.
Tony, we can't see the bottom of your picture.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on now. Oh no. Ah,
Thank you.
no, thanks. Yes, these heather, is it, or gorse? I'm not sure.
Where is one?
So I'm using quite powerful colours here. This is Hooker's green and alizarin crimson, and I'm more or less mixing it on the paper. So if you get a wash of one colour and then put in quite neat on the end of your brush and just let it feed in. Quite effective. It's creating a fairly clear-cut border between what's close and what's far away here. There's a fence receding away here, and now that will be dark because for some weird reason the sun isn't shining on it. Now, there's no reason why we shouldn't have similar colours on this side. A bit of scree poking through the grass here. Encroaching onto the path. Likewise on this side.
Tony, can I ask you about the bush with the crimson in it? What colours did you use?
This is Hooker's green.
Right.
fairly powerful, well, virtually neat, and alizarin crimson.
Right,
And
thank
that was
you.
pretty neat as well, and they just sort of swim together in a bit of a puddle.
Okay, thank you.
I know that sounds very unprofessional. It just seems to work. You won't find that in any watercolour manual. Let it swim together in a puddle. And while we're in this corner, let's, I'll just get these trees in the distance here. I'm not sure they will look exactly like trees. Oh well. More trees here, just beyond the fence. I don't know what is actually creating a fence here. I don't see any wires or anything. More dark trees just beyond the fence. And then underneath the gate, right down to the surface of the path. It's very dark and mysterious, obviously going down steeply. Right, clean my brush. and going to do the sand curved beach. Start off with Naples yellow. And I'll come back over it with darker colour for all the... I don't know if it is actually a shadow or just a change in the composition. Although the shadow seems to extend over the green field, so let's call it a shadow. Running into any wet paint here. So I just varied the intensity by wiping it off. There. This sandbar's got some lovely dark border against the water there. I don't know if it's shadow or composition. It's actually a grey colour, isn't it? Put a little bit of blue in with that. Should get it. So these colours are naturally receding into the distance, so slightly less intense. But I like the way how they strike across the sandbar in curves. You can see the shape of the sandbar because of these lines. Away in the distance here. Some big details. Here's the fence going down the side of the path. Right, and that's in striking contrast to the gate. So I'll paint over the gate, I think, with a, it's like a pale warm grey, like weathered oak. After that, it was pretty much done. To let that dry. To encourage this to dry a little bit quicker. Just adding a bit of shape into this sandbar. It's not perfectly straight. When it's perfectly dry, I can probably erase some of these pencil lines. I'm not going to do it now, but that's entirely possible. Not rushing you, and just I can't do any more to mine, I don't think.